Ladies and gentlemen, you asked for this one. This one is the one that we voted on that poll like several weeks ago, and I finally just gotten around to doing it. We're doing Basic Japanese for people as lazy as me. This video is about asking for stuff. So this one is asking for nouns, asking for verbs, and then a special bit asking for permission, which is basically the verb form as well, but with some little special stuff. So anyway, let's get started, shall we? Basically, asking for a noun is really simple. We'll go in ascending order of complexity. In English, you would say something like, "May I have an apple?" But in Japanese, it's not actually a question, it's more of like a suggestion, I guess? So like in English, we've got, "May I have something something?" Man, this glare isn't that great. In Japanese, you'll start with the easiest one, which is just something something kudasai. So in this instance, we'll use apple. So we're gonna go ringo kudasai. Pretty easy, right? Ringo kudasai. Kudasai is that word that I'm sure you guys have heard before in anime or whatever. It's the please word, one of the couple please words that everyone learns about. It's actually written as someone from above lowering an item to you. It uses the kanji for down. So you've got ringo kudasai. The next one is slightly like less proper, less polite for that one, which is chodai. This one here, ringo chodai. Something chodai. It's like, hey, give me blah blah blah. Chodai is less proper, unless you're in certain contexts. There's a thing with keigo that uses chodai. We're not talking about that one today because keigo is a different series. That's super complicated Japanese for people as lazy as me. The last one for the simple things is using Oregasimas, which is probably the most like proper and polite of the three that we have here. So we've got something something wo onegaishimasu. So like in our case for apple it would be ringo wo onegaishimasu. You can get rid of the wo if you feel like it. It's not incorrect, but if you want to be polite, you can put the wo in there and it's a little bit better. So here's our three most simple iterations. Next up in the ladder of complexity actually turns the thing into a question. May I have something something? In this case, you're using the verbs kuderu and itadaku. Itadaku, if you've watched my keigo video, is a thing that will show up once in a while. But we'll start with kuderu first. I'm not writing any of these in kanji right now because that's not the point of this video. So, kuderu literally means like to receive, or to get from someone, kind of thing. So in this case, you could say, ringo kuremasu ka? Or ringo kureru? In order of ascending politeness, it would be something like, ringo kureru? Can I have an apple? Followed by, ringo kurenai? Couldn't I have an apple? And then, ringo kuremasu ka? And then ringo kuremasen ka? The last two are kind of on the same level there. But that's one of the two, like, may I haves, as opposed to, like, X, please, as it were. The previous one, something kudasai and something onegaishimasu, are closer to being examples of, like, tickets, please, than they are, may I have your ticket. But these ones are actually, may I have. So the next one, itadaku, is way more formal and more impressive, I guess, than kuderu. Itadaku is actually the keigo form, but it's not just keigo now, it's most often used in, like, everyday contexts as well. It's used the same way. So you'd say something like, ringo. Yeah, can I have the ring? Ringo itadakemasu ka? You're actually taking itadaku, which is like to have, and switching it to the like possibility form, itadakeru, before you mess with the other stuff. So it'd be something like, ringo itadakemasu ka? Or itadakeru, itadakenai. Those are all the things that you're looking for. In this case, it's actually, can I have? So, that one's kind of an impressive and important point as well. There are more impolite, casual ways to ask for stuff. You'll see them in slang a whole lot. And they're things like, using the English word, please. You know, ringo, please. Which you'll see, like, those really super genki girls in animes and junk do. Actually, my students will say things like that as well. One of the funny things that happens with talking to my English students when I have an item that they want is they will often say, please me, and point to the thing. Meaning, you know, may I have that thing? Please give it to me. But because of all the bits that they're missing in the middle, they'll point to a thing and say, please me, and my mind kind of goes in places where it ought not to. I always have to explain it to them grammatically that please me is not what you're looking for. For the most part, if you're using Japanese to communicate with another person that you are only familiar with on a base level or something like that, don't use any of the slang. It's probably a bad idea. Verbs basically work the same way as nouns. It's just, it introduces a verb conjugation that I don't know if we've talked about in this video series yet, because it's been like 6 years since I've done any of these videos. The te form of a verb, which is a thing that, among other things, turns a verb into command form. One of the several command forms that Japanese has. In order to use te form to ask for stuff, you'll take the verb that you want someone else to do and switch it to te form. So in this case, we'll use the word eat, since we were already talking about apples a minute ago. If you wanted someone else to eat something, when you hand them that thing, you could say something like, tabete kudasai. Where you're taking taberu, the verb to eat, switching it to te form. You're taking the verb and you're putting it into te form before you put the please words on it. You can't really say tabete onegaishimasu, because it's weird and technically incorrect. Because onegaishimasu is actually a verb, where kudasai technically is not. So you can't have those two verbs next to each other and have it still work. It's funny rules. But, you can put the may I's on there as well. So, like, if you've got taberu, you can also say, tabete kuremasu ka? Could you eat this for me? But it's got a different feeling to it. Like, tabete kudasai is like, I made this thing, go ahead and have one. Where tabete kuderu is like, could you do me a favor and eat this thing? It's more, when you ask somebody, like, something shite kureru, it's more asking for your sake rather than for their sake. Where something shite kudasai can be both ways, and can be interpreted in any of the directions there. But asking something shite kureru is almost always for your benefit, asking a favor from someone else. So, like, if you're using taberu in this case, it would be like, I made a new thing. I don't know how it tastes yet. Could you eat it and tell me what you think? It's a very, like, subtle difference, but it is a difference that I want you guys to know about if you're going to be using it. You can use the same way with kureru that you did up earlier. So, kureru, kurenai, kuremasu ka, kuremasen ka. You use itadaku the same way. Tabete itadakenai desu ka? Tabete itadakemasu ka? It's just the same way. But when you're using itadakeru, it's of course one step above kureru. So, you're really asking for, like, the favor of that person. Like, could you do me the credit of eating this thing for me? Like I said, te form is a thing that we'll talk about in another video because it's an entire section in most textbooks. It's a verb conjugation that is used in a bazillion different ways. But one of them is this like, weak command form. There's a stronger command form as well, which I guess we'll get to eventually, too. I need to make notes of all the stuff that I want to make new videos about, but... So let's talk about asking for permission. You've learned how to ask for something. You've learned how to ask someone to do something. Now you have to learn how to ask if it's okay if you do something. Which is a thing that, if you notice the way that I said it, that is exactly how it is done in Japanese. In English, we'll say something like, can I go to the bathroom? Or may I go to the bathroom? But in Japanese, the subtlety there is that it's not that you're asking permission, you're asking whether it is okay even if you do that thing. So like, even if I go to the bathroom, will that be okay? Is the literal, like, translation of the thing that you're looking at there. You have to switch your verb into te form and then add mo at the end of that thing. Which is the even if that happens in Japan. You'll see the even if happen a lot, like, yoru ni yoko ni natte mo nerenai toka. That temo at the end of something is like, even if I do this. The thing I said a minute ago, by the way, is at night, even if I lay down, I can't sleep. Which was a bad example. So something shite mo ii desu ka? In this case, you're asking, for instance, about eating. Is it okay to eat that apple? So, ringo wo tabete mo ii desu ka? You can step back the formality a little bit by, instead of using desu ka, you can put kana or something like that at the end of it. So like, tabete mo ii kana? Where it's at that one, you're more like wondering aloud to yourself, and loud enough that the people nearby can hear you and answer it. That one's the way that one feels. It's adding kana at the end of something makes it a semi-rhetorical question that you are theoretically asking yourself, and then other people can chime in with their opinions on that thing. So, tabete mo ii kana is like, I wonder if it's okay if I can eat this. And then someone else would be like, yeah, it's totally fine. You can switch it to the other direction, like, is it a bad thing if I do XYZ? So that would be, shite wa ikenai. Or shite wa ikemasen. So, tabete wa ikemasen ka? Would it be a terrible thing if I ate this thing? Would it be a bad thing? Shite wa ikenai. Shite wa ikemasen ka? So you've got the is it okay if, or is it a bad thing if? But both of them are functionally the same. Using the te wa suffix on the end of something, kind of like the temo form, is like, on the subject of me doing this thing. So like, tabete wa is like, regarding me eating a thing. It's a little subtle, difficult thing that you run into with a lot of particle use and that kind of stuff in Japanese. But, it's how it goes. You can kick the te wa down like another octave by, instead of using te wa, using cha. So like, tabecha ikenai kana? And the cha is just a contraction of te wa that has dialectically and like lexiconically been accepted into vernacular, even though it's technically slang, or it was a couple hundred years ago. But then again, English has been adopting slang into its proper language as well, if we are to go by the fact that it is in a dictionary. That's a different story for a different video that's not a teaching video. That's an opinion video about how I think that people are ruining the English language. But I'm not the first one to think that. Anyway, in the other ones we were using suru to put it into te form to make shite, and then putting the extra stuff on the end. Shite mo ii desu ka? Shite wa ikenai. But in this case, you're actually going to take it and put it into passive form. So suru becomes saseru, which is to allow. So it's not really passive, it's the other thing that I never remember the name for. This actually is the same as asking for verbs, which we did a moment ago. It's just this one is a specific word that you should look for. A word and or verb conjugation. So saseru becomes sasete. So you can say something something sasete kudasai. If you are using like any of the two kanji compounds, like benkyo, to study. Benkyo sasete kudasai. Let me study, please. Or kyuke, to take a break. Kyuke sasete kudasai. Let me take a break. But if you're not using something that is a suru verb, then you have to actually conjugate the verb. Conjugation of verbs is like 90% of the rules of this language. So for the word eat, taberu, it actually becomes tabesaseru. So tabesasete kudasai becomes let me eat this thing, please. So something something saseru is sasete kudasai, or sasete itadakemasen ka. It's literally exactly the same way as asking for a verb like we did a second ago, just with the saseru form instead of the normal, like, just te form. That is the way to ask for things, but let's look at a way to answer those questions. So obviously, when you ask a question, if you know how to ask the question, but you don't know what answer might come out of it, it's a pretty useless question. So, here's how to answer these questions. When somebody asks you for a thing, like an apple, ringo kudasai, you can use dozo, which is a very ambiguous word that people have complained about a whole lot. Literally, it's just like, yeah, here you go for it, kind of like, do your thing. So in this case, if you asked me for a cup of tea, kocha ippai kudasai, then I would take my cup of tea and say, hai, dozo, and hand you, well, I wouldn't hand you my tea, you'd have to fight me and pry it out of my cold dead hands. But, oh, shut up, motorcycles. But, that's how it works. Hai dozo, if you want to give it to them. If you don't want to give it to them, then you can either lie, like is expected in conversation, and say that you don't have it, or say that you will not give it to them. So, for instance, if I asked for an apple, ringo kudasai, you could say, ringo wa nai desu. I have no apples. Or, ringo wa agemasen. I will not give you an apple. If someone asks you to do a thing, and you don't want to do that thing, you can say, iie, ii desu. It's like, nah, I'm cool. Iie, ii desu. Or, the similar, iie, kekko desu. Which is another, actually, literally, nah, I'm good, I'm fine. If you wanted to be more, like, straightforward about it, then you could say something like, shitaku wa nai, which is like, I don't want to do it. Shitaku mo nai, shitaku wa nai, shitaku nai. Putting those little particles in there only give, like, little tiny contextual and very detailed, answers, but the answer that you're really just looking for is, like, shitaku wa nai. I don't want to do it. You can even shorten that as far as saying iya desu. Iya desu. Iya is actually, like, an adjective that just means, like, unwanted, or unsought for, gross, ugly. Unwanted is probably the best way to do it. And, like, you'll see phrases like iyana hito, which is meant to be something like a person that I don't really care for, but in a literal sense it means like a person who is unwanted. If you do want to do it, then you can repeat the verb that they've given you. Tabete kudasai. Hai, tabemasu. And just stick it back into the normal form. When you are asking permission for something, you can use the same kind of responses that we've talked about already. So if I said something like, tabesasete kudasai, you could say, hai, tabete ii desu. Which is another answer that you can actually give for, may I do XYZ. Tabete mo ii desu ka? Tabete ii desu yo. 食べてもいいんですよ. Because the ka at the end is the particle that makes it a question mark. But if you want to make it a non-question and switch it back to being a statement that's like, yes, it is okay if you do that thing, then you can put yo at the end of it. Or just cut off the particle altogether. I like putting yo at the end because, as the textbooks put it, yo is a particle that you use at the end of a sentence when you are giving new information in that sentence. I really don't think it's that complicated, but I'm not as professional of a linguist as the people who read the textbooks sometimes are, so far be it for me to argue with that. But yeah, いいんですよ is a very easy and quick and common thing to be able to answer someone with. So when you say 食べてもいいんですか? Then they could say いいんですよ or 食べていいんですよ or どうぞ. Dozo is going to be one of those words, you guys. If you're asking someone for the past... I can't remember the name of the conjugation for it, because it's 11 o'clock at night right now. But the saseru one, sasete kudasai, you can do the same thing. Ya, ii desu. Dozo. Tabete kudasai. All of those are valid answers for these things. You'll notice that in Japanese, like in a lot of different languages, when somebody asks you a question with a verb in it, you can answer that question in the affirmative by simply repeating the verb in a different form sometimes. But it's one of those languages. 食べていいんですか? 食べていいんですよ kind of thing. So anyway, now you know how to ask questions and how to answer those same questions. Even if it was a little bit vague. I can't stop eating this steamed cake, you guys. It's so good. But vocabulary consists mostly of nouns and verbs. And that's pretty much every bit of vocabulary ever. So if you just pick up nouns and verbs and that kind of thing, and then learn how to use those pieces using the rules that I'm giving you for the grammar, then that'll be the way to do it. Okay, so now I will ask a question, and I'll give you whether it's a yes or a no. So a yes and a no. And I want you to answer those questions in Japanese. So my question will be in Japanese, and you answer it in Japanese. Okay? Pancake kudasai. Pancake kudasai. Headphone chodai. Headphone chodai. Good show. Next up, we'll do the verb bits. 数学教えてください. 数学教えてください. きれいな絵を描いてください. きれいな絵を描いてください. And now we're going to do the permission ones. 学校に来なくてもいいんですか? 学校に来なくてもいいんですか? And 宿題出さなくてもいいんですか? 宿題出さなくてもいいんですか? So that is our discussion on how to ask for stuff. How to ask for things, how to ask for people to do stuff for you, and how to ask if it's okay if you do that thing, and the answers to all of those questions. If you have questions of your own, put them in the comments or send them to me on direct message, or tweet them at me. It's probably going to be, I'll put it, here, my Twitter handle. Send me messages, emails, I don't care. If you want to ask questions, you can contact me and I'll answer them for you. It won't be hard. Put your answers to the questions that I asked during the exercises down in the comments if you feel like it. Let me know whether or not this video was useful or whether it was helpful. I'm glad that I had enough people vote that this thing actually became a thing. Let's talk about what kind of video you guys want me to do next time. I'll put it up on Twitter soon. Tonight, tomorrow. Thanks for watching, you guys. I hope to see you guys again in the next video, even though really I can't see you guys. You guys are just seeing an after image of me. heat death of the universe is imminent, lizard men, Illuminati, etc. But yes, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.